Anyone know what this is?
Robin.
It's an American robin. Okay, extremely common bird in most of North America, but not so common here most years. There's a lot of years where not a single robin will show up in the Miami area, and then some years where the food supply further north is just not enough for them, they'll come down here in droves and everybody will have them in their backyards just hopping around on the ground. Another bird like that is the cedar waxwing. This is a really beautiful bird, and it's a small bird, a very dainty little bird, but they're a fruit eater, and again, they're only here sometimes. This is an American goldfinch. This is what they look like in the summertime in their breeding plumage. In the wintertime, when we get them, during years when they show up here, they're not bright yellow like that, they're much duller. This is a ruby-crowned kinglet, tiny little bird, even smaller than warblers, about gnatcatcher size. You can see that little ruby crest on it, that it'll push those feathers up when it's kind of ticked off at something, when it's upset. All right, exotics. Please tell me you know what this is. You know what the name of it is? It's a pigeon, but what kind of pigeon? What's the birder's name for this? No one? This is a rock pigeon. Okay, our feral pigeons. Where do they come from originally? They're not native to here. That's why all the birds you're going to see now are exotics. They don't come from Florida. This is originally from Europe, and it was introduced here. And now, of course, they're everywhere. Same thing with this guy. This is the Eurasian collared dove. This was introduced to the Bahamas in the 1980s, and somehow they made their way to Homestead first, and they've now colonized so much of the United States that about 2 years ago, some were found in Alaska. That's how fast this bird is colonizing the United States. And no one knows how that's impacting other birds that may be taking its habitat away. But they're everywhere in Miami now. This is one of the most common birds in the city. This is a white-winged dove. You can see the white in the wing. Much less common than the Eurasian collared dove, but there are still these around, especially down in the Redland areas, and they're also very common in Broward County. Anyone know what that guy is?
Starling.
That's a European starling, introduced from Europe by somebody who was a fan of William Shakespeare. This bird was mentioned in the works of Shakespeare, and there was a guy that had the bright idea that he was going to introduce every bird mentioned in Shakespeare to the United States. He started with this bird. He released a flock of them into Central Park in New York City, and they have since spread all over North America. So it's a pest species. It outcompetes other birds for nest holes, birds like woodpeckers. So this has become a big problem bird, but you can see these in just enormous flocks in cities throughout North America, and Miami is no exception. This is a house sparrow. These you can find if you go to places like the dumpsters behind McDonald's and Burger King, because that's where they like to feed. But they are an urbanized bird, and again, it's a bird that comes originally from Europe. This is a house finch. We're not seeing very many of these yet. This is a bird from the western United States that was introduced into the eastern United States, and they're slowly but surely making their way down the Florida peninsula. So now a few of these are starting to show up in backyards in the Miami area. This is a nutmeg manakin. This is a bird from Southeast Asia. It's a beautiful bird, but it's an exotic. It doesn't belong here, and it's starting to show up in, it's quite common in the Pensacola area, and it's also become common in the Cutler Ridge area locally. We have lots of parrots here. There have been over 75 species of parrots that have been documented in Florida. This is the monk parakeet, sometimes called the Quaker parakeet. This is the only one that doesn't nest in a hole. It actually builds a communal stick nest, and you'll see these nests built on power poles. FPL hates these birds, and they're at war with these birds. But they form these condos of sticks where several pairs of these birds will live together. They'll even nest in the nests of other birds like ospreys and bald eagles. Okay, these two parakeets are in the genus of parakeets called Brotigerus parakeets. The one on the left is called the yellow chevron parakeet. The one on the right is the white-winged parakeet. And they're tiny little parakeets that can be found in Miami-Dade and Broward County. This is the mitered parakeet. It's one of many species of Aratinga parakeets they're larger and they have long tails. Most of them have some red on them, mostly green, but some red. And these form big flocks. If you go around the Daytran building around Dadeland North, in the late afternoon, you'll see these congregate by the hundreds on the buildings around there. This is a red-crowned parrot. This is an Amazon. See, it has a shorter tail, so this is a parrot. Parakeets have long tails, parrots have short tails. So there are several species of Amazon parrots. This is the red-crowned. That is a blue and yellow macaw, the largest of the parrots in the Western Hemisphere. And this bird is actually breeding here in Miami. A couple of years ago, there were close to 50 of them that were counted during Christmas bird counts. And absolutely, and there's a pair of them. Well, you've set up the nest boxes for them, right? Well, they haven't used them yet, right? But hopefully they'll nest in there. But they are nesting right in people's backyards. That's a beautiful bird. This is a spot-breasted oriole. This is a bird that was introduced to Miami back in the 1940s. It comes from Central America. It's now found in Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach County, but it seems to be declining, and it's probably cowbirds that are the culprit here, that they're parasitizing their nests, and it's causing this bird to decline. But it is an exotic. It doesn't belong here. This is a red-whiskered bulbul. If you live in Kendall or Pinecrest, you may have these birds in your backyard. This is a bird that was introduced from Southeast Asia. They actually escaped from an aviculturalist back around 1960, and there's still probably a couple hundred of them that are nesting in East Kendall and the Pinecrest area. This is a hill miner, which is from Southern Asia, from India, places like that. This is the miner that's used by the pet industry. People keep these as pets because they are mimics. They learn how to mimic people. So you can find these. Matheson Hammock Park is a really good place to see them, and sometimes you see them right here. We've heard them during events here. We've heard them. They're very noisy, extremely noisy birds. If you live on a pond or a lake or a canal, you have these ducks in your backyard. These are Muscovy ducks. Okay? These are native to Mexico and Central America. They were originally introduced here as farm ducks, but now they're found wherever there's water in urbanized Miami. They have not spread into the Everglades, so they're staying in urban areas, but they are, for the most part, they're dependent upon people feeding them, and there's no shortage of people that are willing to feed these birds. And of course, there's no shortage of people that get really upset by the people that are feeding these birds because they make their messes all over the place. So it's a very controversial bird. And to add to that, we now have this bird. This is the Egyptian goose from northern Africa. And this bird is starting to spread like rabbits, and breed like rabbits. They're starting to become all over the place. Most common at golf courses is a church near 82nd Avenue and 104th that has about 80 of these in its parking lot. So watch out for this one. This one's going to be in a backyard, coming to a backyard near you. Peafowl. Okay, this is a peacock. The female is a peahen. People keep these as pets, or they just keep them in their backyard, and now they're starting to become feral. They're breeding, and they're just walking around, and they've become a part of the community. So that's become a problem because this is another very noisy bird, and they make messes. And they get hit by cars and all sorts of problems. Okay, real quick, Caribbean vagrant. There are a lot of birds from the Caribbean that can also be found here in Florida, but there are some that only show up here very rarely, and when they do, birders get excited. So an example of that is this bird. This is a bananaquit. It's found in the Bahamas and Cuba, and it occasionally will show up in somebody's backyard, and everyone will get real excited, and people will come from all over the country to come and see it. They'll actually jump on a plane to come and see this bird. That's how rare it is in the United States. If you go to the Bahamas, it's all over the place. But birders, they play these games where their game board is only going to be the United States. So if a bird shows up in the United States, they want to see it. Even though all they have to do is go to the Bahamas and see it no problem. That's the way birders are. Here's another one. This is a western spindalis. This used to be called a stripe-headed tanager. Really pretty bird, also from the Bahamas and Cuba. There are other species of Spindalis that are found in Hispaniola, Puerto Rico, Cuba. Oh, this one's found in Cuba. Jamaica has their own species that have evolved into separate species. This is a Zenaida dove, very similar to a mourning dove. The only difference is it has that little white patch in the wings. And very rarely does this show up in the United States. So if you see a bird like this, let us know. If you see a bird like this, really let us know. This is a Bahama wood star. This is a bird that's native to the Bahamas. The last time this bird was seen in the United States was 1973. So definitely, if you see this bird, it looks very similar to the ruby-throated hummingbird, but it has a really forked tail. And the throat is more purple than red. This one, if you see this one, you really, 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 really need to let us know. This is a Cuban emerald. This one has been suspected to have shown up in Florida, but has never been documented. So if you see this bird, which is all green except for that white in the back of its eye, there is kind of a purplish sheen to the undersides of it, but mostly it's a green bird, Cuban emerald. This one we really need to know about. If you ever see a hummingbird that you're not sure of, let us know. This is a bird that showed up in Joe Barros's mother-in-law's backyard. This is a Cuban bullfinch. This is a bird that's kept in captivity by Cubans because it has a really pretty song. This is the male. Kind of hard to see in this picture because it's black. It has a little white patch on the wing. But Joe and the rest of us have no idea how it got here. It could have escaped from somebody. It may have shown up here on its own. But these are the kind of things that sometimes happen in South Florida and why birders really get excited, because anything can happen in South Florida.